We know that the building blocks of an analytical mind begin in elementary school, begin to foster further in middle school. So when you're ready for high school, we've established a baseline for math mentality. And from there, we shift from memorization to stronger analytical skills and looking math not only as solving an equation, but how those practical skills will work in the job community and later in life, because we just can't escape math. Here to explain more is Steve Cantees, the Executive Director of High Schools for Sarasota County. Thank you for joining us.
And thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I understand teachers are shifting to a new mentality this year, a design to align teaching method. But it's not just this year, it's a building block over a course of years. Can you explain?
Yeah, so when Florida shifted to the Florida core standards, there was a national move to a common set of standards. Florida looked at it a little bit differently, so they passed their own Florida core standards. And the idea was to increase the complexity of the work that students are doing. And the expectation, the outcomes would be that students would be better prepared for college and career readiness. So we, in Sarasota County, trying to get ahead of that move over the last several years, we've been working with teachers to develop a plan to address the expectations of those standards. Those standards are very different than what was expected before. And math was even probably technically a little more difficult for teachers to make that shift. So we approached it from a standpoint of what materials do we need, what kind of support do we need for teachers, and ultimately we wanted to make sure our students were achieving at a high level. So in Sarasota, we have great teachers. We always have great teachers. That's kind of a constant that we can always count on. And so moving from that understanding that we do have quality teachers, we have quality resources and buildings and supports from the community. We have amazing community support. So what is it that we're going to need to do to move our teachers forward? So we started planning, looking at where we wanted to be 3 to 4 years down the road. And ultimately, we put a good plan in place. We started training the teachers on the standards. In year one, it was about purchasing the right materials so the students would have the right materials in their hands while they're doing the work. And for teachers, it was about an awareness and an understanding of what those Florida core standards look like in math. And so the teachers, working with our assistant principal cohort that oversees mathematics, our program specialists at the county level, we started building that awareness. In year two, we started looking at what other kinds of supports we could find, and we brought in some support from outside. The College of Career Readiness, the Center for College and Career Readiness came in, and there are some consultants that we hired to work with our ELA and our math teachers, our English and math teachers, but the ones working with the math really helped the teachers understand what the shift looks like. So as you make that shift from the next generation standards to the Common Core standards, or the Florida Core standards rather, when we make that shift, what does it look like for teachers? And to help them understand how to build that complexity into the math classroom. So our math classrooms these days look a lot different than what they looked like even 4 years ago. And we're continuing to work to make that shift. You will see, instead of classrooms in row in math, very traditional, and the teacher at the front of the classroom, you're going to see more of students working together in groups. There'll be problem solving and digging into problems and tasks as a group that are much deeper than what they would have in the past. So we're seeing that shift, and I think we put a good plan in place over the years, and ultimately we've seen a lot of success from that training.
How do you feel students are going to benefit most from this? What's going to get them excited about math as they approach this new mentality? Yeah,
I think that's a good question. Math can be a challenge. You know, math in high school, you start either in middle school or high school, you start with the algebra, geometry, algebra 2, and then students will start branching out. We have a lot of different options for our students to do. So, you know, when students start thinking about what their career plans are and what they're going to, where they're going to head next, the idea would be, let's put them on a track, even in math, that will help them be successful with that. So the idea behind, you know, when you look at the 8 math principles that are aligned to the Florida core standards, Those math principles talk about real life experiences, and you know, when we were in high school, we always said, you know, you always heard the comment, well, why are we doing this in math?
Why do I need
Well,
this?
Yeah, why do I need this? Why am I doing this kind of work in math? And the reality is we have to align the work in math with the reality of what are they going to be doing when they graduate high school. So they're going to be in the workforce, they're either going to be in the workforce, they're going to be in college, preparing for that next step for them. So again, I think that's the way if you build relevance and you challenge students, and you know, the idea is you know, you build that learning challenge into the classroom. I think it keeps students engaged and builds their interest towards math. It's never an easy thing to get all students excited about math, but I think we're doing a better job than we ever have before.
Exactly. If you're a liberal arts major, if you choose art, there's always some math component, whether you're going to use it for business or for any other profession. It doesn't go away.
That's exactly right. Yes.
So you've talked about the 4 years kind of leading up to this year. What's new and exciting that students and parents can expect in the coming school year?
You know, I think, you know, as we work towards the fifth year of implementation, our plan is to continue to build that expectation that students will be working in groups, that students will be working around a task that is aligned to the standards that they're expected to know that are built into the Florida core standards. You know, additional tools, we want them to use, you know, one of the math practices is that they're using tools, the appropriate tools to solve problems. And we want to build even more technology into those classrooms. Some math classrooms will have more than others. You know, ultimately, we can connect the work that we do in math with other programs in our schools, including career and technical education. You know, we've added an ACE program or an ACE or an IB, International Baccalaureate, or a Cambridge program in every one of our high schools. And those programs have incredibly challenging math curriculum built into it. That is college level work. And so ultimately, what we're trying to do is build a pathway where more students will be prepared to take that rigorous coursework as they go through high school.
And challenging them, but having that exposure early as opposed to when you walk in later on in your college years and all of a sudden it's, I've never been exposed to this, and what do I do with this? But getting them to think early on and what that really means.
Yeah, being, you know, college and career ready is a much different conversation than what it used to be even, you know, 4 or 5 years ago. So I think in Sarasota County, fortunately, we have gotten out in front of this. I think if you look at the test data from all of our levels, elementary, middle, and high school, we had an incredibly successful year in math this year. So it tells me that we're doing some things right. We're not perfect. We can always get better. And we want to continue to work on training the best teacher force probably in the state of Florida, but providing those professional development opportunities for them to be successful. That's what we plan to do. We'll invest in the teachers through professional development. That will translate into the students being highly successful.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay.
I appreciate your perspective. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
These are the building blocks for an analytical mind, and we will continue to explore other initiatives as the school year moves through. Thank you for joining us.